You know, that's a quote from Daniel Pink, the author of Drive, and he's really hitting on something important here, something we're going to unpack today. A powerful, really methodical way to think about and navigate career change.
But why do we even need this? I mean, why is this so critical right now? Well, check this out. A recent Gallup study found that almost 90% of workers are either not engaged or actively disengaged from their jobs. I mean, that's huge. That's not just a statistic, it's a full-blown epidemic of people feeling unsatisfied at work.
So, if that sounds familiar, hey, you are definitely not alone. And in today's Explainer, we're going to break down a framework that was basically designed for this new world of work. It's called the pivot method. Okay, so to describe this feeling, this career stagnation, author Jenny Blake uses this perfect analogy, the boiling frog. The idea is that the situation gets worse so slowly, so gradually, that you don't even notice it's becoming unbearable until, it's too late. It's a very real anxiety that a lot of us feel.
And here's the thing, the old playbook for careers, it's broken. It just doesn't work anymore. That whole blueprint of finding a company, staying loyal, and having job security for life, that's been replaced by a completely new reality. We're in a project-based economy now. It's volatile, and change isn't just a possibility. It's pretty much a constant.
But wait, this doesn't have to be a bad thing. In fact, it's a huge opportunity. And that is exactly where we introduce our new blueprint for building a career that you actually love, the pivot method.
So what exactly is a career pivot? Let's get really clear on this. It is not about making some reckless 180-degree turn. It's not about quitting your job to become a potter overnight. The definition is key. A pivot is about doubling down on what's already working and using that to make a purposeful shift in a new but related direction. It's methodical, not chaotic.
Now, this requires a pretty big mental shift for most of us. We're used to thinking of pivoting as a plan B, right? It's what you do when plan A fails. But in today's world, learning how to pivot, well, that is plan A. It's the #1 strategy for having a career that actually thrives.
So how does it work? Well, the method itself is broken down into this really clear 4-stage framework. This is our roadmap. First, you plant. Then you scan. Then you pilot. And finally, you launch. Let's break down exactly what that means.
All right, let's dig into that first and, honestly, most important stage, plant. I want you to think about it like you're an architect. You would never, ever build a skyscraper on a shaky foundation, right? Well, your career is no different. You've got to plant yourself first. And here's the absolute key to this first stage. So often, our first instinct is to immediately start looking out there for the next big thing. But the best pivots, the really successful ones, they always start by looking inward and getting grounded in what you already have.
So what are we talking about when we say foundation? It's really built on 4 main pillars. It's about getting clear on your core values, mapping out a 1-year vision, truly identifying your unique strengths, and getting real about your finances. This is your personal bedrock.
The big question you need to ask yourself here is super powerful because it completely flips the script. Instead of focusing on what's missing or what's wrong, you ask yourself, what is already working in my life, in my career? What are the parts that I actually enjoy and want to build upon? And this whole idea of focusing on your strengths, it's not just some feel-good advice. It has a massive, measurable impact. Research from Tom Rath's work shows that people who get to focus on their strengths every day are 6 times more likely to be engaged in their jobs. 6 times! That is not a small difference. Okay, so your foundation is set. It's solid. Now we get to the fun part, actually building the structure. We move into the action phases of the method. Scan, pilot, and launch. This is where you start to methodically figure out what's next. You know that feeling when you've just hit a wall in your career? That's what Blake calls a plateau. You're just stuck, frustrated. Pivoting is the active choice. It's deciding to take that feeling and turn what could be a crisis into a genuine opportunity for growth. So let's quickly break down what these 3 action stages really mean. First, you scan. This is all about exploration. You're looking for interesting people, new skills, and cool opportunities that really line up with that foundation you just built. Then you pilot. This is all about experimentation. You start testing your best ideas with small, low-risk projects. And finally, you launch. That's the commitment, where you make your final move based on all the data you've gathered. Okay, this pilot stage, this is where the magic really happens. This is where you stop just guessing and you start gathering actual real-world data. The big question to ask yourself is,
What small, low-risk experiments can I run to test a new direction without, betting the entire farm? Maybe it's a weekend project, a short online class, or even just volunteering for a different task at your current job. And the goal here is to find what Blake calls the stretch zone. See, you don't want to be in your comfort zone because that's where you stagnate. And you definitely don't want to be in the panic zone. That's just burnout waiting to happen. The sweet spot is right in the middle, the stretch zone. That's where you feel challenged, you feel excited, but you're not totally overwhelmed.
So many of us think we have to feel brave before we can make a change. But this idea completely flips that on its head. Build first, courage second. Courage isn't something you have to find before you act. It's what you get from taking action. It comes from all those small, concrete steps you took in the pilot stage.
And all of this leads up to the final stage, launch. But by the time you get here, it shouldn't feel like this huge, scary leap into the dark. Because you've done all the prep work, a launch is really just the final 10 to 20% of the move. It's the logical end of a really well-planned process.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. If you walk away with just one thing from all of this, let it be this. Your next move matters way more than any big, grand 5-year plan.
And honestly, this should be a huge weight off your shoulders. You do not need a 5-year plan. The pressure to have your entire career path mapped out, it's gone. In today's world, that way of thinking is not only unrealistic, it's actually paralyzing.
The whole point is to stop obsessing about the distant future and just focus on what's right in front of you. Because at the end of the day, the only move that truly matters is your next one. If you make that one a good one, the path forward starts to become a whole lot clearer.
And that's really what it all comes down to. The pivot method gives you the tools, it gives you the roadmap, the mindset, but in the end, it all comes back to you. So the real question is, what's yours?